I'm Ansel Burch.
And I'm Mimi Wallace.
And it's time to party.
This episode was recorded on July 23rd, 2023. We are not doctors. We don't give medical advice. Please drink responsibly. For crying out loud.
Welcome. All right. Welcome everyone to Time to Party. This is our third episode on A Needle in a Timestack. I keep saying a needle. Needle in a Timestack, the 2021 film featuring Leslie Odom Jr., Frida Pinto, Cynthia Erivo, and others, including my favorite elf, Orlando Bloom. We've talked a lot about the movie. We've talked about recurring themes. We've talked about what we would use as drinking and smoking games rules. But now, in our third episode, we are going to do a shallow dive into a piece of technology or object that we were interested in the film. And Mimi, before we get started, just real quick, is there anything you'd like to say to introduce yourself to the folks here in this third episode? I think we can assume that they have probably in the 2 weeks gone out and watched your movie by now.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I don't know. I'm like, what can I say that's different about me? I'm Mimi, and I really love beer. How about that?
Ooh. Are you like a craft beer snob, or do you like all beer all the time?
I love a good IPA. A good.
Oh, okay. You and I would do very well in the liquor store, as I like all of the other kinds of beer.
No, I enjoy a good IPA. So I try all different ones. I like going to the breweries here in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area. I try to go to as many different ones as possible. I think my favorite one so far is Old Irving Brewery.
I love that place. It's right up the street from me.
Oh, there you go. I love that place also. They have one of my favorites there, so I like going there.
Friend of the show, Peter Carparelli, is a member of the band Bloodletter, and they just, at the time of recording, released a new themed beer for his metal band, A Different Kind of Hell. It is a light lager. So There we go. I'm going to be trying it out soon. I encourage all of you to. Hopefully it'll still be there in mid-August. I don't know how much of it they brewed, but they do, as you mentioned, they cycle through pretty quickly. So get it while you can.
It's so crazy because I'll actually be there next Sunday. It was just like before we started recording, doing the podcast, I was just texting my friend, we have a gig to do next Sunday. He's like, where do you want to go after? I was like, Old Irving it is.
Heck yeah.
So there we go.
Well, fantastic. That is a great fun fact. Yeah. So let's talk about edutainment. Mimi, what did you pick? And did you have more than one thing that you were thinking about before you made your choice?
No, I picked one thing. It was, I think I mentioned it in the first episode, but my thing was the flip phone, the smartphone.
Which makes perfect sense. It was the first thing I thought of as well, which is why I was like, I better have a backup. This is too on the nose, too perfect.
Yes.
So would you like to go first or would you like to go second?
I can go first.
Okay, go for it.
So I picked the flip phone, and then it reminded me, or it looked very similar to me, to the Samsung Galaxy flip phone.
Mm-hmm. The new one with the OLED screen? Yeah.
Yes. And I went and I started looking that up, and that came out in February of 2020. It's when they first introduced it, and they did they did like a commercial or mention it during the Oscars. And so
that's right.
And so that's when I first learned about it. I was like, oh my God, I want one. And so when I watched the movie, that's immediately what I thought it was, until I was like, again, I think I mentioned this first episode. I was like, it only had like 3 buttons on it. That can't be.
It can't be real.
It can't be it, but that's what it really reminded me of, and it looked exactly like it, or a replica, a version of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they're making a razor now They brought Razor back out of the mothballs with the same sort of seamless flip screen, which also feels like a very similar design. So yeah, okay. You know, I had forgotten about that. I guess because when the first one came out, I wrote it off immediately. I was like, that looks like it's going to break. And nobody I know had one. And it's only in the last year that I really feel like I've seen people I know having the like OLED flip open seamless.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of people with it. I think it's still catching on. You know, they also reminded me of the sidekicks when sidekicks came out.
Oh, yeah.
And so you could just like with your thumbs flip the screen up and get to typing.
The little keyboard underneath. Yeah.
Yes. In essence, it was a small iPad. Like, is that what it was?
Yeah.
A small iPad.
A friend of mine has that one. Yeah, the one where you've got the, like, there's one screen on the one side, and then you flip it open, and it's got the, like, tiny iPad inside.
Yes. So that's what it reminded me. I thought it was very cool. But then there's also a version, but see, I don't think that phone, it didn't, like, flip and bend. There was another phone, and it's an Android phone where it's, like, just like how you described it. So the touch screen is on the front part, and then you flip it open. It doesn't bend, though. You just flip it over, and there are, like, 2 other screens. I don't know what this phone was, but it's like one of my old bosses had it. And I was like, where'd you get this phone from? Like, what are you doing? I don't know.
Hey, you know, our fascination with keeping tiny screens with us at all times knows no end.
Right.
But what was your relationship with flip phones before that? Or did you do any other research into like old school flip phones?
No, I've been super interested. So in high school, I had a Razor flip phone.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Had the Razor, had a Sidekick also, a T-Mobile Sidekick.
You had all the good ones.
And then there was also, I don't know what it was called, and I still have the phone. Oh my God. I wish I could like show you all this, but I still have it. It was just like a little push-up phone. You know, it's like a
the slide ones? Yeah.
And you just slide it. I don't know what it was called.
Was it called the Juke?
I don't know what it was called. But I had one of those where it's just the phone and then you just can slide it up. I don't know what that phone was called. But I still have that. And so I think I've just always had the fascination with the flip phones, the phones that folded, because I was just like, how are they still working if you're going to fold it over? But technology.
Yeah. Well, and apparently they're having a resurgence.
Yeah.
I guess people are like, I'm too addicted to my cell phone. I need something that doesn't do all of these things. So like people are buying flip phones again.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you just said. And then the fascination of phones. I think it's also like the marketing of it. People are constantly going out and getting the newest and latest updated version of, you know, an Android phone or an Apple phone. And so I'm like, it's only so many versions of the same phone that you can make. Right. So I would think when it comes to marketing, it's like, what can we do to continue to get people to buy new phones? Let's rebrand the flip phone and bring that back out. And I would not be surprised if they rebranded the Sidekick and was like, hey, let's just go back and see, you know, whatever we can do to make sure people are still getting the updated, newest technology.
Yep. Well, and I also I guess there was this shift, right? When we went, okay, so we had the like candy bar style, the brick phones.
Yep.
And then they introduced the flip part, which was unquestionably cool and we all wanted. I think about that scene in Hook where they do the like phone quick draw competition at the beginning of the movie. So yeah, and then there was the slide style that the Matrix popularized.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like a gun cartridge coming out when they hit the button.
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't really a lot of change in cell phone form factor until smartphones, until we had like the one flat screen, which almost, I don't know, felt like Palm Pilot-y to me.
Yes.
Because I don't know about you, but my first smartphone was a Palm Pilot. I had, in college, I had a flip phone. I had the like construction style, heavy rubber, indestructible flip phone. My parents gave me like a little bit of money to buy a computer with. And I went to Dell and I was like, okay, how much money do I need to spend for a computer? And if you got a laptop, it was like redonkulous. It was just thousands and thousands.
Yes.
But a desktop was downright cheap, to the point where, like, for the price of a laptop, I was able to get, or less than the price of a laptop, I was able to get a desktop computer and a Palm Pilot. So I had one of those like little Palm Pilot pocket computers when I eventually left college and got out into the real world and decided it was time to upgrade. I got the BlackBerry Storm, it was called. And it was like, it was a proper smartphone, but it had, you know, all the like BlackBerry features on it. And that was my entrance point into smartphones. Did you jump straight to like iPhones or?
No, I think I went through most of the phones because I think in college also, or maybe a little after, I had a BlackBerry also. Like I went from the flip phone and then my mom upgraded and got a different phone. And so she gave me her BlackBerry and I was like, I thought I was the coolest person ever.
Oh.
Like, I have a BlackBerry. And then it had like the little, mouse pad in the middle, which is
yeah.
So I just thought I was everything. I think I did that. I had different types of Android phones for a long time. I still think this is my favorite phone. I had a phone, I think it was called a Nexus phone, and the screen was so big. I was just like, I think I still have that phone too. I think I started collecting most of my phones and just keeping them. But it was
one of those
really,
like just shy of an iPad mini cell phone.
Yes. And I was like, this is unnecessary. Why is this a cell phone? Because it did fit in my pocket. So, I had that phone for a long time. Was an Android user. I feel like I should go back, but I don't think I got an iPhone until, I think it's only been like 4 years. That's it.
Oh, okay. I'm an Android addict. I don't think I can ever switch over at this point.
I was that person. I was like, I don't see the point. Like, I like my Android phone.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if we're going to get rid of cell phones altogether, or the like handset brick style that we already have. Just because we have Bluetooth earpieces, we have smart watches. You've got an iPad or some sort of tablet that you're going to carry around with you. And, we're entering an age. There have been a couple exciting announcements recently talking about how tablets and phones are soon going to be dockable with your like home computer setup. So instead of having a laptop and a desktop and a phone and a tablet,
Right.
You'll have like one device. When you get home, you'll plug it into the thing. And the thing will take your screen and put it onto monitors and let you plug in peripherals and do all the hard work that you have to do. But at its heart, the one device is doing all of it. And I wonder if if I've got a tablet in my backpack or bag or whatever, why do I need another smaller version of the same thing? If I've got a watch that's got my texts on it and an earpiece
yes,
you're already carrying around this like whole electronics store worth of stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's why I gave away most of my stuff or traded it back in. I was like, I don't need an iPad. I stopped wearing my watch. And I'm just like, I have a laptop and a phone, which is enough because now the phone is connected to the laptop. So when my phone
Mm-hmm.
rings, the laptop rings, and I'm like, this is already too much for me. So it's too
I'm
much.
getting too many notifications in too many places.
Yes, it's too much. I don't need this.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else about flip phones or cell phones in general that you wanted to talk about?
I think one other thing that was just fascinating to me over time has been the cameras on the flip phones.
Oh, yeah.
How they are extremely advanced now. So, starting off, we had the cameras on the flip phones, which was our introduction to having a camera on your phone. It was extremely pixelated. I mean, extremely pixelated. And then just the technology over time, how it advanced. It made me think about the movie also, and just the flip phone and her recording and how those memories were super clear. I guess I'm referring to the memories of the recordings of the phone. They were super clear. And then just starting off with the first flip phones, how everything was pixelated and it was hard to see. And just, again, this goes back to time. Like, over time, you just see how everything is advancing. So I think that's always been my fascination with phones in general, but especially flip phones, how you had to manually do everything with the dial pad.
Yeah.
Like texting, it had to be like 333-111, and like just to say the or something like that.
Oh, man. The old T9, yeah.
Yes. So I think that was it. That was just my fascination with that, with the flip phones and the advancement of it and what they look like now.
That is a great shallow dive into flip phones, which are unquestionably the most, like, ubiquitous piece of technology in this movie. Like, absolutely, the prime thing was cell phones and how really central they are to the character's life here.
Yes.
I looked into CAD software, which is computer aided drafting. Yeah, if you're hip. So Nick is an architect, or at least that is the impression I get. He at least likes to draw buildings.
That's what we saw. Yes.
It appears his boss doesn't seem to be an architect.
No,
the conversation, the speech that we have to sit through, 3 or 4 times, does not seem to be about architecture, but Nick at least seems to be an architect. And so, yeah, he's using this CAD program on his paper computer thing that he's got, which is dope as hell. I want to know what that is and how I get one.
Exactly.
So I looked up CAD, and I was blown away by how well. Okay, I'll rephrase this. How old do you think computer-aided drafting could possibly be?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. 15, 20 years? No.
So I would have guessed 30. I think I would have.
Yeah, that was my
30.
initial guess. Yeah, but then I was
because I remember in high school that CAD was a thing that people could learn about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if I remember correctly, I saw CAD at one point. I don't remember how or why, but I seem to remember interacting with it in some way. Like in those early, try out the lame version of Photoshop that was available back then.
Right.
Sort of classes. CAD goes back to 1957.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah, 1957, if Wikipedia is to be believed. Which is bananas.
Wait, how is that possible?
So the early versions of CAD, obviously now computer-aided drafting, we think about occupying 3D space and doing full 3D renderings. Back then, what they used CAD for primarily was measuring. So the idea was, okay, I'm gonna draw in, I'm gonna write up the parameters of the building that I want to design or the piece that I want to design. It was used for like industrial manufacturing. And they would use the CAD program to do all of the like measurements and like testing of the idea. Like, okay, if you're gonna, I get the impression, it's not laid out in the article that I read, but I get the impression that the reason you would use it originally was like, okay, if I build a building that is this dimension by this dimension, using this material, will it hold up? Right. So it's more of a like, you know, doing the math sort of side of things. Right. It eventually became more of like a primitive wireframe thing where you could like draw basic technical drawings, but it was still pretty much just the same as doing it on paper. You just, you know, it was all measured by the computer and you'd get a very exact architectural drawing afterward if you went to the trouble of putting it in. But 3D wireframes, here's the next one. 3D wireframes were introduced in 1969.
How?
How? Like, weren't they still doing punch cards at that point?
That's
like,
because I'm trying to figure what was 3D in 1969.
What does 3D even mean in 1969?
That's
right?
what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure that part out. Like, it's 1969. What are you talking about 3D?
Yeah. Yeah. So apparently, you could develop interactive 3D models on computers in 1969. It's MAGI released Cynthia Vision, the first commercially available solid modeler program.
When I tell you I'm going to look this up as soon as I'm going on a deep dive.
My mind was blown. And what's really interesting is like, if you look at the Wikipedia article, it goes, okay, history, first CAD 1957. Spent a lot of time doing 2D, well into the 70s. And I mean, you can still use CAD for 2D now. 3D comes out in 1969. So 12 years takes to go from whatever the original was to 3D renderings. Full mathematical representation of freeform surfaces, 1989. And then there's not really anything different between that 1989 entry and today.
I'm very fascinated by this now. So, yeah.
Either whoever wrote this Wikipedia article just did not care about anything between the late 80s and today.
So it was like, that's enough.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you don't care about it. But yeah, so they talk about how like, okay, now there's, 3D modeling has become the norm. It's found even applications for the wide public can do 3D modeling pretty easily. Like you can design things. I think about the birth or the proliferation of 3D printing nowadays, right? Like
yes.
On a cheap computer, you can easily download a program that will let you design a 3D model and then print it, which is stunning. But I think the thing that really caught me about this, and it was the thing that caught me in this movie as well, is, okay, so computer-aided drafting or computer-aided design is something that, like, you know, it has become pretty ubiquitous. Like, everybody has access to this technology. If you've got a computer, you can probably do some level of 3D design.
Exactly, yeah.
Even if you didn't have the skills before, you could learn them, right? Pretty quickly with the apps that are available. But the thing that we see so often in movies and representations of future tech is this idea of existing in the space with the 3D model, right? Like having it either like holographically projected or putting on a pair of like AR goggles and walking through the space. And even in this movie, you know, we're in the future. There's time travel. They've got nicer phones. They're still driving the same Teslas, weirdly.
I thought about that.
Tesla's perfect. Don't need to move at all. Everything else, slight changes. But yeah, so there's this idea of, okay, we're in some version of the near future. And he is still on his like magic paper drawing pad doing CAD the same way. Like it's still a 2D representation that becomes a 3D model that he is drawing more or less by hand using tools from within his software. But he's not like interacting with the 3D space. He's not projecting it up. I think about like Tony Stark, the way that he can sort of, pull up the holographic representation of his armor and then like pull pieces off and throw them in the recycle bin. Or even, well, no, that was 2D, not 3D. I was thinking about Minority Report, where he had the little glove finger things that let the computer track him in real space.
Oh, right. I'm like, I now have to go back and watch Minority Report. That's a side note.
That's a good movie. Yeah. But yeah, so one of the things they talk about in this article, in fact, it's the majority of the article is talking about future state for CAD. And they talk about how, despite the fact that, this material, this style of computer program has been out for so long, we still don't have a way to interact with it in true 3D fashion. We're still doing 2D projection of these 3D models. And part of that is just because like AR goggles make a lot of people sick. It's really hard to render the space that quickly. It's, those sorts of things are really a big challenge that CAD has not overcome yet. As well as how do you, if you put on the VR goggles and you're interacting with your 3D model, how do you get the fine motor skills to then actually do any designing with it, as opposed to just seeing it? Like if I wanted to go, I'm in the 3D space and I need to build my building. Am I wearing like haptic gloves? Do I need like a screen within the screen? How do you interface with the actual work of it, as opposed to just seeing the model?
Yeah. I think about that every time I see a movie and it has that element of 3D animation or something in it. I often think about that, especially if they don't have, the full explanation of it. Like, this is 3D. How did you build it? Usually you just see like the actor pointing at things and then doing something with their hands or whatever. But I'm like, where are the gloves? Where's
the sensor? How's it doing this?
Exactly. How did this come about? Because you can't tell me. And I'm like, I don't know. That you just stood there and then the things were doing the things and the things. I'm like,
We talked about the Star Trek movie, the 2009 Star Trek movie last month. And I think it's at least on the movie side of things, it's a very similar problem to the screens and displays that they have in Star Trek, where the actor has to reach out and touch this button, and then the button has to change to reflect that you touched it. And it's so interesting to me the way that they do that, because, the actor has to be able to touch whatever, right? Like there's no way for you to, as a designer for that piece of the set, to know exactly every movement that actor is going to make, especially if the director changes their mind. Like if before they were going to shoot from the right side of the thing, and so the button needed to be on the left so that there was, you could shoot across. If they flip that camera move on the day, now the button needs to be on the other side.
That's true.
And so, how do you anticipate that in the way that you design these, reactive displays? And I think it's very similar to, if you're going to have something come up in 3D space and the actor is just going to, poke at the air.
I know. I was about to say that, because essentially that's what happens often on sets. Like, actors are basically miming, especially when you have, those extreme CGI versions of the animations in movies. It's just actors miming and pointing at the air. Usually that's just how it is on sets anyway, because there's most of the time there is no technology in real life that is based on, you know, what they have in the movies.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of pointing and pretending like they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a great conversation, Mimi. I really appreciate all of the heart and spirit that you brought to the conversation today and for the last couple weeks. I'm so excited for people to hear our conversation, and I do hope that we're able to have you back. But for now, I think that is it for Time to Party. Next week, we will have an outtakes episode full of all the bloopers and digressions that didn't fit into the main episodes. But otherwise, friends at home, we'll see you again in September. Until then, Mimi, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me on the socials at Mimi the Actress, MEMEACTRESS. That's on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. I think that's all I'm on. That's all I can handle.
That seems like plenty.
You can find me at Indecisionist on Twitter and at The Indecisionist on Instagram and Threads. Special thanks to April Moralba for our podcast art and to Marlon Longett of Marlon and the Shakes for our amazing theme song. This has been an Indecisionist production. Show notes and transcripts are available at indecisionist.com/time2party.
And until next time, friends, wherever you are in the time stream, be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes. Party on, dudes.
Party on, dudes!